It sounds simple, but just do it. Just make sure you do the dream. This does really well. We're a family of 7, and so we cook a lot of food.
I like wheeling around in a wheelchair with my newborn baby in IKEA.
Well, the biggest part of the process was definitely the design and research phase. Hi, I'm Jeff, and this is Anna, and we're Sweet Sweet Bus Life. Come take a tour of our bus. Welcome to the kitchen. So over here to my left, we have our washer dryer combo unit. The cycles take longer than like a standard washer dryer that you'd have in your house. We can put dirty laundry in and it takes about 5 hours and then clean clothes come out. So it's actually really handy. And we typically will run it at night. Because of our limited water storage, we will usually only run this if we're plugged into a campground with shore power and shore water. So we don't really run it off grid. But yeah, it does really well for us. So the sink is from IKEA. We wanted a really big sink. We're a big family. We've got a lot of dishes. We've even bathed kids in the sink before. We actually found this faucet on Amazon. This just pulls out and I can either have a spray or a regular stream. Yeah, and then our butcher block countertops we bought at a home supply store. We actually built all the cabinet bases ourselves. They're 3/4 inch plywood. They're really solid. And then we built these doors out of 3/4 inch MDF that is then wrapped in Formica. So whatever gets on them, they wipe off very easily. And then yeah, these latches have come in really handy for keeping everything nice and tight while we drive so we don't have disasters. And then we have our 24 inch propane stove. This does really well. We're a family of 7, and so we cook a lot of food. And this is a really good size for us, and it runs on propane. It doesn't use a lot of propane, so that works out really well. We've got our miscellaneous storage hanging stuff up here. We've got our pot and pan storage here above the stove. Opposite the stove, we have our fridge. This is a 120 volt fridge, so it is a pretty big consumer of power. But it seems to do well. It's not really been too big of an issue for us. So our build was actually completed in 2 phases. Initially, we just built out the main level and our door was still located in the front. And so that we hit the road after we completed that. And for about 2 or 3 years, we drove around and we got to thinking about things that we could have done differently, or we should have done differently, or we wished we had done differently. So when we parked for our phase 2 of our project, that gave us a chance to really hone in on some of those things. And so these cabinet doors are actually a product of phase 2 of our project. We had like shaker style cabinet doors before. They're really nice, but they just didn't work well with us. They kind of, along the bottom edges, they caught dirt and stuff, and it was just hard to keep clean. So we wanted to go back in with just like a slab cabinet door, and these fit the bill for that. Also a product of phase 2 were these cabinet doors. This originally didn't have doors. They were just open faces, and we had all of our books stored in here. But we built a new book storage, and that allowed us to move that out and put these doors up to give us more pantry storage for the kitchen. One of the larger things with the phase 2 project was also moving the entry door down to here. Actually, the washer dryer unit, this cabinet, and this countertop used to actually live right here. And so in this project, we pulled all this out, tucked it into here, cut all this out, and moved the door down to here. So when we put our front door in this area, we built this half wall here. And inside this half wall is our water distribution system and our water filters and all of the stuff for moving water throughout the house. It made it to where it's inside the heated space for us, so we don't have to worry about it freezing up in the wintertime and things like that. And it's also inside a half wall, so it would have been wasted space otherwise. Over to this side is my office area. I work as a remote software designer, and so having a nice space where I can work without distraction and handle video calls and things like that was really important. So we built this fold down desk in the emergency exit area. It was also important for us to keep the emergency exit. So the desk is on like breakdown hardware, so we can push a few buttons and it folds right down and we can still access the emergency exit in the case that we ever need to. Also in this space, we have our Starlink router. The Starlink system provides internet for us anywhere we have a clear view of the sky. We have our high voltage breaker panel in here. We have our low voltage fuse panel, our interior low voltage fuse panel. We've got a couple of power meters. We've also got our remote control and display for our EcoFlow Delta Pro power system. And yeah, fire extinguisher and carbon monoxide detector and smoke detector. I'm originally from Kansas. As a kid, we did a little bit of traveling. We went on a few trips here and there, and my mom would take my brother and I on road trips that were really super cool. I always loved that, and that was something that we wanted to pass down to our kids. And
yeah, and I'm from California, and so we have all that luscious desert. Where I'm from is Bakersfield, and so my family, we would go over to the beach to get out of the desert climate, and it was a wonderful memory. It was like something that I just really held on to, and so I knew that we wanted something like that with our kids, like with his background and mine. Like we really wanted to incorporate that with our kids, and so that's, I guess, it's just love of travel, yeah, and like those memories.
So we bought the bus in October of 2017, and
3 weeks after we had our son.
Yeah, after our fourth kid, so it's very fresh. We bought the bus. I actually flew to, we were living in Texas at the time, and I flew to Chicago to a bus dealership and bought it and drove it home. I jumped in it, never having driven anything larger than a U-Haul truck, and immediately hit the highway, and we brought it home, parked it in the backyard fence of our house, and immediately started tearing it apart. So we originally paid $4,000 for the bus, and then we poured about $31,000 into it in our initial phase, and that spread out over about 2 years of time to complete. So that brought our total up to $35,000. And then when we parked a few years later to add the phase two ended up costing about $15,000 additionally, which brings our total to right at about 50 grand. And yeah, and I work full-time as a remote software designer. And so that just enables us, in the software industry, remote work is very popular, and the schedules are usually really loose, and it makes it really easy for us to be able to, I can knock out my work earlier in the day and go hiking or whatever in the evenings, or whatever we need to do. It just helps us that industry is really flexible for our kind of lifestyle.
I homeschool the kids, and I make sure that nobody jumps off the roof or decides to build a tree house in someone else's yard. So.
This is Jock. He's our Great Pyrenees. He's our original bus life dog. We actually had him for a couple years before we bought the bus, so he's gone through the entire building project and living aboard. And this is his spot most of the time, especially when we drive. He will come up here. If he hears the engine start, doesn't matter where he's at, he'll run up here, and this is where you find him. So we have our couches here. All of these couch cushions pull out, and there are seat belts mounted in behind. That's the same for both sides. We have seat belts along all of these seats so that everybody's safe when we're riding down the road. These couch arms both fold up for storage, and then there's actually a table leg that folds out of here on each side, and the back of the couch that's behind these pillows can actually pull out, and it'll magnet to those table legs, and then we have a nice dining table or craft table or whatever. Above the couch on this side, we have our bookcase, and then to my right, we have one of our mini split climate control systems. This provides heat and cooling for the front half of the house. It does really, really well. It runs on our solar power. It's running on solar right now, actually. And it does really well, except for when you're parked on a downhill slope like we currently are, and our condensation drips out. So all of our couch cushions lift up, and there are doors that open to provide storage underneath, all across here, this one, and as well this front section. And in fact, there's an opening here for our robot mop to park in, and its charging dock is located under there. So it's nice and out of the way when it's charging. So driving any large vehicle can be a challenge, and especially when you add on to the top of your large vehicle to make it even larger. And so from the beginning, we were conditioned to watch for, bridge signs for height and weight restrictions and things like that. But we also use an RV-specific GPS app that takes in all of our our weight, height, length, and it will plan our routes accordingly. And that's never caused us any problems. We've never had any close calls or anything. So definitely takes a lot of stress off of, worrying with where we can go and where we shouldn't go, rather. But yeah, obviously very large windshield, very large view all the way around. So that's actually makes it really easy to see. And then we took out all of the things that were in the bus driver area that were specific to the school bus, a bunch of systems and switches and things that obviously we don't use. And so once we got rid of a lot of that enabled us to trim down a lot. And that made our driver area really compact. And so that, again, gives you an even better field of view. And we did the actual dash and driver area in phase 2. So that gave me a good 2 to 3 years of driving down the road to think about exactly how I wanted that dash to be. And I think that I wouldn't do anything different. I think it's exactly what we wanted. So when we first moved onto the bus, we actually only had 4 children at the time. And our youngest was a baby and still slept in the bed with us. So we built these 3 bunks here in the hallway for the other 3 kids. Expanding was something that we had to keep in mind because we knew that our kids were all growing up and we also had another kid as we were on the road. And so we had a few plans for extending these bunks out and a couple different things that we could do. It just never set very well with us. And so we put our heads together and ultimately ended up deciding to add on to the top. And so that's where this upper area came from. The idea for that came from. And so now we have 2 bedrooms upstairs with a game room, and then we have 3 bunks. So all of our kids have their own private space that they shouldn't outgrow for a long time. So the biggest consideration, the biggest part of the process was definitely the design and research phase. We spent a long time figuring out exactly what we were going to do because we knew at the end of the day we're adding weight on top, we're adding size, we're adding a lot of stuff that we had to keep in mind and required special consideration. We drew everything in 3D models so that we could sort of get a sense for how it was going to look. And that's I have model files that have sketch after sketch after sketch of different iterations until we landed on exactly what it is that we wanted, and which is what we have now. But ultimately, when building the upper section, we were really, really obsessed with keeping it as light as possible, but still it had to be as strong as possible. So that sort of dictated how we built it, how we even laid it out, and then what materials we chose and that kind of thing.
We got pregnant with our daughter in 19. Yeah. So we got pregnant with her, and we were still, everything was not done in here. There was still like some larger projects that needed to be done, but we did have the basics. And we knew it was getting closer. We actually intentionally gave birth to her in the bus. It was not an accident. We were 5 minutes from the nearest hospital, and it all just turned out really well. We had nurse ready and waiting in case we needed help. We also had a midwife ready and waiting in case we needed help, and also by phone. And the surges were coming, and I was like, this is the big leagues. Like it's getting close. And so he's like, okay, well, like let's find somewhere nice, because it was just side of the road stuff. We wanted to make sure we had shore water, shore power, everything solid. We didn't want any mistakes. And so I just sat like basically right here and just kind of hummed to myself while we drove down the road. How many hours did we, like maybe 2 hours?
Yeah, 2 hours probably.
Until we found a nice campground in Wisconsin. And
so it was just a matter of, we already had all of our kit and everything ready, but pulling everything out, getting everything ready. We had all of our previous children at home as well, so it wasn't necessarily anything new for us. Just being in a smaller space and being on the road was definitely a new part.
My worry was like, we are so far away from our midwife that we had used for the other births, but thankfully we found other people that were like local that could be there in an instant, or we can be in the hospital in an instant. And so yeah, we got everything ready, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, like it's right now, like right here on the floor. It's gonna happen right now. My daughter actually caught her. She was about to go to bed. She's like, I'm gonna go to bed, you know, it's really late at night. And she's like, I'm gonna go to bed. And I was like, no, don't leave. If you wanna catch, like, it's happening. And she's like, okay. So my eldest, who's 11 now, she like came out there and she just caught her. And we were all just kind of all stunned there for a while. Like, we didn't go to bed until like 6 a.m. because we were all just kind of sitting around like, that just happened. As simple as that. And she passed all her APGAR scores and she latched on immediately and everything was totally fine. And yeah, and then like 2 days later, we were back on the road traveling. We went to IKEA actually. Yeah, I like was wheeling around in a wheelchair with my newborn baby in IKEA. Like our bus was parked in the garage at IKEA and everything. Yeah, so that's how that went down.
So welcome to the bathroom. We run the Nature's Head composting toilet. We have number 1s plumbed into our wastewater tank. There are 7 of us using it, so we typically have to empty number 2s about once a week. Just depending on what's going on, sometimes maybe we make that stretch out longer. We have this sink and cabinet set from IKEA. That's a really, really nice size for this kind of a thing because it's very shallow this way, so it doesn't take up a whole lot of room. Up above, we have the original mirror from the bus. It wouldn't be a rear view mirror, but the driver could use it to see the kids. We hung onto this and we're trying to figure out what we wanted to do with it. And when we were building out our bathroom, kind of as a joke, we put it up and we were like, wait, that couldn't be any more perfect. It's just the right height and it's like a really nice width. And it just adds a really nice touch to have this original like bus piece in here. And then opposite me, we have our shower, our full ceramic tile shower that has about a 9-foot ceiling. I'm 6'3". I don't want to bend over in the shower. And I also don't like a shower head that is pointing like this. I wanted it to come straight down. So we built it high from the beginning. All right, so this is our master bedroom suite. This is a king size bed. This bed will actually open up. It's on hinges and has gas struts to hold it up, and there's more storage underneath. This is a rear engine bus, and so the engine bay is back here, and it's actually under about half of this bed. We also have our cat's automatic litter box about right here under the bed, and so there's like an opening, a tunnel opening down to the side where she can go in and make her way back to there and do her business without her setup taking up any space. So I have my guitar hanging on the wall here. And then over on this side in the ceiling, we have this active register, this active vent. When we added the top section in the entryway for that is our second mini split climate control system. It does really well, but the air has a hard time making its way down the hallway to back here. And so we added in this duct system that comes from here, pulls the air through the floor of the upper section, down a duct, and then out into here. And it works really, really well because without that, the air just couldn't make its way back. So this is our electrical power bay. This is our EcoFlow Delta Pro. This is an all-in-one unit that has our solar batteries, our charge controller, our inverter, all the power management, everything happens right here. Our solar wires come in through this box, so we've got a cutoff switch here, and that just plugs into the back of the EcoFlow here. Our house actually plugs in through this 30 amp cord into the EcoFlow here. These are expandable up to 10.8 kilowatt hours. This unit is 3.6 kilowatt hour battery capacity. We have this manual transfer switch installed. This enables us to, if we wanted to plug into a 50 amp shore power, I can toggle this and run everything in the house off of 50 amp. In hindsight, I wouldn't have installed this. This was a lot of extra effort that we don't need. It's useless. But yeah, if you're building a bus or a van, I highly encourage you to look into the EcoFlow because it definitely makes things really, really easy. So we tow our Jeep behind our bus. This is our daily driver. If we're parked somewhere, we need to go into town or anything, we have this. We tried for a few months to travel without a tow car, and it just didn't work. It didn't work out. Our bus is too big to get into a lot of places. So state parks, national parks, and things like that. A lot of times we're too big to get in there. So we keep our Jeep for those kind of adventures. And then we also go on some off-road trails and things like that you definitely have no business taking a bus. So it's a very important part of our adventure.
We were already homeschooling, and we were definitely curriculum based, and we loved to travel too, which made it really easy to just pick up and go. And then it kind of morphed into this, once we got into the bus, it morphed into unschooling and really focusing on the passions and getting the basics down. And their interests, they blow us away. Like on a daily basis, somebody is coming up with something, some engineering term, and I'm like, I have to look that up, hold on. We brought the bus home into our backyard, and we only had 3 at the time, and they were just ecstatic. They were just overjoyed. They thought it was it was so cool. They'd never ridden in a bus before. Like I said, homeschooled. So they helped us actually remove the seats and raise the walls and put in the subfloor and like different things like that. They were very much integral in the whole process, and they were so stoked because we kept telling them, like, I know it takes a lot of patience, and I know you don't understand everything, but one day we're gonna have a bathroom in here. And they were just like, what, in here? Like, how? And so when we did have the bathroom, it was just like, they just marveled. And like, even like to this day, like the places that we go, the people we see, and the different styles of people's homes, like they think it's really cool.
So oftentimes people ask me what's one piece of advice that I would give to someone considering building a bus or going into this life. And it's the same response every time. No matter what it is you're going into, whether you're building a bus, a van, you want to go tent camping more, you want to, whatever it is, whatever that dream is that you have in your mind, that thing that's always there that you just cannot walk away from. It sounds simple, but just do it. Just make sure you do the dream. Don't let anything stand in the way. Yeah, it's going to be hard. It's going to be extremely hard, but you can push through those. You're strong enough. You have that dream for a reason. And so just do the dream, just push through it and see it through. And it is so worth it. Thank you so much for checking out our home. If we've inspired you today, be sure to check us out on YouTube and Instagram at Sweet Sweet Bus Life.